Welcome to the 21 Convention podcast. My name is Steve Mayeda, and I am your host for today's episode. Today, we have 21 Convention alumni Ed Aiken. He spoke at the August 2014 event in Austin, Texas, and will be at our Tampa event 2014, October 24th, 25th, 26th. Get your tickets at the21convention.com/event. And what we're talking about here with Ed is martial arts, fighting, and cultivating that warrior mentality. We get into heavy detail about a whole bunch of different situations, whether that comes to fighting, violence, or how to process that trauma out of you. And really, what it means to be an expression of yourself in today's modern world and how difficult that can be. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're somebody that's just into bettering yourself, or you're really into martial arts, man, because we talk a lot about that, this podcast is going to tell you how to cultivate and develop that warrior edge. Now, you can find out more about Ed at fightfastandflee.com. And of course, if you want to spend time with myself, with Ed, and 20 other speakers, 20 other experts at the top of their field, whether that's fitness, dating, relationships, martial arts, or entrepreneurship, anything really to be the ideal man, you've got to attend the 21 Convention 2014 in Tampa, Florida. That's October 24th, 25th, 26th. And man, I love making these podcasts. I love interacting with you guys, but I love even more having a conversation face to face with you. So let's do that. Until then, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, get involved with us there and subscribe to us. If you can, leave us some stars or a written review or some thumbs up, whatever it is, spread the love and we'll spread it back to you. Thanks for watching, and let's get into this interview with Ed Aiken. What's going on? Edward Aiken, upcoming speaker at the 21 Convention in Tampa 2014. And you also gave a speech that actually has some mad traffic on the Killer Instinct from 2012 in Austin, Texas. Both you and I are actually in Austin, Texas right now doing this interview. Yeah. And man.
Oh, and it's both our birthdays tomorrow.
That's right. This is a crazy thing. So we should have a big party, but
yeah. My wife's in Vegas.
Man, knowing her, if she hears that.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, but yeah, it's crazy. So September 4th, our birthdays are tomorrow, and man, basically what I want to get to here is fighting. And you teach a lot of different fighting. You're a real experienced martial artist. But one of the things that you bring to the table that is so undeniably unique in all the training that I've done and people that I know that are, whether they're in the sports of martial arts or whatnot, you specialize in real life fighting, real life street fighting, like crazy violent stuff on basically how to protect yourself, how to defend yourself, and how to walk around knowing the differences between that. What is the difference between street fighting and martial arts?
Well, street fighting, you can say it can be anything goes. And we're talking weapons, knives, guns, 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, 5-on-1s, 5-on-5s. And it's really just, there are no rules, and there are certain things that, that you do in sport that will get you in trouble really quick on the street. So it encompasses a lot more dynamic training, a lot of fluid training, and it's more the experience. It's better to go in basically and experience fighting two guys, not in a real fight, but I'm talking about training to get that experience to kind of open your eyes as to what really works and what doesn't. Whereas a lot of traditional martial arts or even sport martial arts, take MMA, for example, that's one of the best for self-defense, but it's one of the best for a one-on-one controlled situation, self-defense. And if you take that mentality into a bar fight, depending on the fight, it can get you in trouble. If three people jump in, or if there's weapons or bottles are flying, or, if you do a double leg, take the guy down, all of a sudden there's 4 people kicking you in the head. It's a completely different scenario. And you have to consider that. As a self-defense practitioner, those are the things you have to consider. And it's really even arts like Kali, where it's a weapon based art, it's a knife based art, sticks and knives. a lot of that training can still get you in real bad trouble in a real knife fight. And so it's really looking at reality. How do things unfold? And basically, looking at the bullshit out there, looking at your own bullshit. What are you caught in? Oh, you can do 50 disarms with a knife, but in real life, do people attack you that way? Most of the time they don't. So it's, you have to have, it's really the training method, but it's more the mindset that you get from the training method. And I can teach you the mindset, but I can't teach you that without taking you through the experiences, because you can know it all, but the moment that shit hits the fan, it has to become internalized, because you're just going to react. So you have to go through step by step, throwing yourself into the kitchen to kind of experience the scrambled eggs.
Yeah, right. No, man, you brought something up that in high school wrestling, there was this guy, he's a couple years ahead of me, and he got in fights, man. He could kick some ass. And I remember after he got out of high school, I saw him, and I was like 2 years younger than him, so I was still in. And his eye was all fucked up. Like, it was this bulged eye. It was totally crazy, man. And I guess what had happened was he got in a fight, and he took the guy down, was fucking him up, because he got in fights. He knew it was up, but as he had taken the guy down, took it to the ground, he got kicked in the eye, and the boot, I guess, went in, and he was like partially blinded, and his eye was like disfigured or something. It was crazy, man. But and still to this day, I still talk to him. So this is like 20 years later. It's totally fucking crazy.
It's very, very common. One of my old training partner's brothers was a really tough wrestler, and he was an experienced street fighter, but he was. See, that's the thing, is that you can win a lot of fight. Like MMA guys are going to be the toughest guys. They're going to be the best guys for a street fight, for one-on-one. And they may have gotten into 20, 30 street fights where their particular strategy has worked for them because nobody's jumped in or no weapon was pulled. So they get trapped in their own bullshit of this is going to work every time. And so that, my buddy's friend was a real tough wrestler. He actually did the Gracie challenge back in the day. He went in there and challenged Hoist, and he got choked out, but he did pretty well. And he every weekend he would go to a bar, stare somebody down, they'd go outside, he'd double leg him, ground and pound him, and he'd win. Well, he happened to do that against a off-duty cop who was drunk at the time, went outside, and I'm sure that my friend's brother double-legged him, was having victory. The guy panicked, pulled his gun, and killed him.
Jesus.
So he, I'm sure, I guarantee he wasn't expecting it. Never happened before. Just like the off-duty cop probably never expected this guy to double-leg him, and he panicked and shot him. The guy, he didn't get any trouble either. But that's the reality is, hey, man, you can, a grappling match can turn deadly very quickly as the moment a weapon comes out, or the moment you get hyper-focused on that one guy that you're fighting, which is a natural, you have to combat your natural instincts, because when you're interlocked with somebody in close range, that's your reality. All that's going on, but you've got to, kind of have eyes in the back of your head. That takes training, and that can only be taught through experience, through actually doing it. And that to me is the difference. But at the same time, there's a lot of people in the self-defense realm who, maybe they do Krav Maga. I'm not knocking Krav Maga. It's every art is great, but they have an art that deals with, they do the guns, the knives, multiple opponents. But you have to look at the training method. And even when you get stuck in that, a good MMA fighter with just a basic jab, cross, hook versus the guy who knows neck breaking and all this other stuff, he's going to win because he has a better base. He has more flight time of actually sparring, being in the ring, pressure. He's in shape. He's taking punches. And so if the guy who spends his life doing technique but breaking bones all the time but doesn't actually have a realistic framework of which to work that off of, he's going to lose. So it's not so much the art, it's the training method.
Yeah, and actually what I really want to know, because I always like hearing you talk about it, is, man, what is the difference of that mentality? Like, even if you take us through like a story of, man, where shit gets crazy, where you panic. I mean, it is one of those true moments of terror that you have in a street fight where you don't know what's happening. What is the difference? Because MMA sparring, you might feel like you're going to lose, but you can tap, or like there's not that same life or death feeling in it. And if you could explain that difference, I think people would get it.
Well, it's a lot of my last talk, if you guys haven't seen it, I talk a bit about this, is turning on the killer instinct and turning it off. And that basically it's going from 0 to 100 back down to 0. And a lot of that, it will help you control your emotions a little bit, but there's always going to be some sort of fear. And there's always, especially in the midst of chaos, when things just get worse and worse, or you get punched and you didn't see which side the punch came from, you can still train and still maintain your reactions to your emotions. You won't be able to control your emotions all the time. But the difference really is, we're trying to, how to explain this, is your training should kick in. And so the moment, let's say I'm in a fight one-on-one, and out of my periphery, I see somebody rush in from the side, I have to switch my mindset and engage with both people. I have to be able to, even I may want to kill this guy right in front of me, but the moment I see something out of the side of my eye, I have to disengage and drop everything. And that can only come through training. If I'm really nervous before the fight, and the moment the fight happens, I have to have sufficient training to where my reactions come in. So it's not even something you think about, it's something you actually have to train. And we do that through putting ourselves through different scenarios to where you're just flowing from one thing to another, where you're grappling with somebody, all of a sudden somebody throws in a knife, one person grabs a knife, that changes the dynamics. And depending on where you're on the bottom, on the top, and your opponent grabs a knife, or you grab the knife, you have to switch into the appropriate attack or defense mode. 2-on-1 defense is much different than a 1-on-1 defense versus 3-on-1 defense versus a knife defense. And it's really just having the mindset to recognize what's happening and equate that to reality as much as you can. In other words, you're not going to try to do some fancy disarm the moment you see a blade comes out. Hopefully you're gonna run, because it's, I don't care what how fast you are. It only takes one stab of the knife, one slice of the knife, you're dead. And it's just that's the moment. And I'll share a story. You asked me about a story. We actually had something happen this weekend, and I was out with CJ, who and 2 other guys. And all of us train. So CJ primarily trains jiu-jitsu. Our other buddy, he's had a couple cage matches, but he's primarily jiu-jitsu. And then the other guy besides me, I think he just started training jiu-jitsu. So basically you have 4 guys, 3 of them train jiu-jitsu. I train jiu-jitsu, but I'm a street fighter. So
you're actually a first-degry black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So that's saying something,
Yeah. I mean, so we're but at the same time, I think Trent with his cage fights, he probably has some stand-up. I don't know. I've never seen the fight, so I can't really say.
Right.
But relatively speaking, you've got 4 guys who can hold their own.
Right.
And we were just standing in the corner of the bar, and some guy started yelling at CJ. He was a big tall guy. I'm sure
you got to pick on the short guy. CJ is a shorter but stocky built in. Let me tell you,
stocky, short, stocky Australian. And
if you get him on the ground, he's good.
Yeah, he's good. And so anyway, so this guy, he tipped his hand. He was mad about something, but he kept going on and on. So at first I thought he was kidding. But then I realized he's serious. So the moment I realized that, I I walked across the room to get an angle on this guy, because I didn't want him to attack CJ. And now this is something, if you ever do my courses, it's something I teach you. You always watch for this. Not the guy talking shit. It's the guy walking around behind. That's the guy you got to watch out for. Well, knowing that, I'm the guy you got to watch out for. And I'm very good at getting an angle on people. So I went across the room, but this guy watched me the entire time, and I was getting people in between me and
hitting your line of sight. And
he had my line of sight the whole time. So I'm like, whoa, something's not right here. This guy's a little too cognizant of what's happening.
Right.
So I angled a little more. I got more distance. But I was just like, if he was going to rush CJ, I was going to rush him. And so at the next point, Trent came over to me and he watched both of us. So I told Trent, I said, something's not right here. This guy is too aware of us. and he knows other people in the bar. I said, this is, we're basically a step behind. We don't know who's friends with who. And so the guy started walking, and I was still kind of like, I was leery. I just didn't feel right. And then that guy started talking that he was going to kill the smallest guy of us, and that, which wasn't CJ, it was actually the other guy with us. So I just told them, I said, look, something's not right. Get your friend. Let's get out of here, because this guy he's done this too many times. So we went out the back door. Somebody tried to stop us. We shoved him aside. And, that's it. From there, we actually had to wait and see. I said, look, if this guy, if he's as good as I think he is, he's done this before, he'll try to follow us outside. Let's make sure we're not followed. And we went to another bar. Now, here's the thing, is usually in that situation, I'm the only one that knows what's going on. And if I don't feel comfortable about something, I'm going to have to go educate these guys. Like, look, we got to get out of here. Or, or maybe one of them's going to go, no, that guy said shit to me. And you have to stick around out of trying to want to save your friend, even though they're putting themselves in a really bad situation. Fortunately, it didn't happen in this case. And what I found out was, after, when I was initially walking, trying to get a beat on the guy, he was talking to somebody, and he lifted up his shirt. He had two knives, which I had a knife, and so did Trent. But he probably, what would have happened is he would have went towards CJ, but because he was aware of me and I had too much ground to cover, I very easily could have got stabbed. But seeing situations and like knowing that this guy was too aware of where I was, our best bet was to flee. We got out of there. So it wasn't a fight, but that's the difference between what would have happened with an MMA fighter or somebody who wasn't aware of that, and they just grabbed the guy, went to punch him. They get him a punching match, but on the third shot, the guy already has his blade in his hand. And it's
who gives a shit if you have a? I mean, like, getting in a knife fight is just, I can't believe you had a knife on you. You almost never.
Well. Don't say never.
That's what you say. No, man, but I've thought about that, because when I would carry around a knife, I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. If I draw this, it's on a whole different level of fight.
Level. Yeah.
And then if I get disarmed, I'm fucked. If he has a knife, then it's just so crazy to. And I actually stopped carrying him around, because it was just like. It built an odd mentality within me that I did not.
Yeah, Vunak won't carry a knife, because he even Dan Insano always says the art will come out if I get attacked. So I won't carry a knife, because it's gonna be there. Me, on the other hand, I'd rather have it than not have it. I've been in so many situations. It's kind of like I attract trouble even at this age.
Really?
I'd rather have it. But just this week, I mean, just being there. People say, well, why do you train? Well, I didn't do anything. I don't even think CJ did anything. He just got the attention of some asshole who happened to have dual knives and probably has used them before, And I don't know how many other people he had there with him, but he was definitely setting something up. And I don't know if I would have been there. Luckily, we were all on point, on the same page. We went out the back and we made sure we weren't followed. And that's the other thing, is awareness is the biggest thing. Like, if you know what people are going to do, people who are true criminals, this guy, if he was 100%, D-bag, he wouldn't have said anything. He would have just attacked one of us, and if he was a real criminal, he would have just stabbed one of us or all of us, without saying anything. But you've got to watch when shit hits the fan. People love to stick around and talk and, oh, he said this, I did this. Your best bet is to get out of there. This guy could have, just followed us from a distance, waited for us as we were in the other bar, followed us till we went to our car hours later, and then stabbed one of us, just because there's people out there that do that. And so you've got to think, what can really happen in this situation, and what's worth it? Is it worth it to take this guy out? Because afterwards we were, I was like, oh, we would fuck that guy up. I was like, he was messing with. But the reality is, hey, maybe we would have got the short end of the stick on that one. Or, I stabbed him, he stabbed me, we both die, he dies, I'm in jail. I mean, for what?
Yeah, no, man. You actually have a story about a buddy of yours who got in a fight at a club, and they basically beat the dudes down, but he got stabbed in the process and didn't know it. And then 2 minutes later, just passes out.
Yeah. Well, they didn't beat him down until after. The guy just walked up to him and stuck him in the chest, and he didn't even know
Really?
he was cut. Yeah. And then they jumped on him and beat the guy down. But that's the thing. Knife fights, like you don't duel with a guy. It's either you're people will attack you, preemptively with it, and you don't even know it's there, or it comes out in the middle of the fight. Rarely does somebody square off with you and you both are dueling in the middle of the fight, but we train that way. We do that for a specific reason. That's the other part of training for reality is there are certain things that certain training methods that you can train in. I train all the time in jiu-jitsu, but I am not going to go to the ground in a bar fight if I can help it. But I'm not going to negate my jiu-jitsu training, because if I do get into a fight and I get thrown on the ground, I better know what I'm doing. Same thing with knives, with 2-on-1. You have to put yourself in those situations, but you also don't want to discard something because you have a new revelation, like, oh, I've been in 50 fights and I've never went to the ground, or I went to the ground 50 times and I beat the guy 50 times. So all you do is ground fighting and you discard your stand-up, or vice versa. You discard something. You have to be very careful about and this philosophy holds true for everything, is when you use reality as your feedback mechanism. In other words, you're looking at how shit really goes down in the street fight. You should be doing that with your business. How are people really responding to my sales letter or my emails? Really, I mean, in reality, if you can track it, you need to look at it. And then you adapt your method to that and constantly change it. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in theory, or you're going to get stuck in, and this is every day. And as a martial artist is a day to basically discover your own ignorance. What's the cause of your own ignorance? And that's what the process of, even within the microcosm of jiu-jitsu, what's the reason that you're always getting arm locked? Why am I always getting arm locked? It's your own fault, and it's your own technique or something that you're doing that's letting your opponent capitalize on it. Sure, your opponent might be better, but ultimately it's your fault. And so if you take that mentality and extrapolate it out into your life, it's what you're discovering the cause of your own bullshit. And we're all caught up in it. And so if we can say, okay, what's really working though? And you're not just saying, well, I wonder what works, or I've seen it work. You have to actually see it and test it in reality. Then you're going to start having successes. That's the difference. You have to really, oh, I could disarm a guy with a knife. Really? Well, have you ever tried it? Have you ever trained it? Give a knife to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, who's athletic, and and tell them to attack you and see if you can get it away from them. Chances are you're going to have a real hard time. Now maybe if he's a librarian and you're strong, like Vunako says, just you take the guy out. No, get somebody who's strong, athletic, give them a training knife and say, attack me. I'm going to take that away from you. Shit ain't going to happen. Or it's very low probability.
I'll tell you, I have plenty of scars from Ed, even with training knives. Actually, I have a big one on my arm, and BBs, or whatever you call them, from the airsoft but you talk about reality as a feedback loop, and you talk about if somebody's caught up in their own bullshit. And for you with martial arts, and this happens with any expert that you talk to, especially while interviewing a lot of the 21 Convention guys, is there's such a high level, of fitness, of diet, of philosophy. It all comes back to the same thing. Like, for me, a lot of that has to do with seduction and connection and all that sort of stuff. But when you express yourself in any way, and I think martial arts forces you to do that, fighting forces you to do that, it's an expression, you get what works and what doesn't. And there's that feedback loop of reality. I can tell you this right now, a lot of people like to know about fighting, and a lot of people who are watching this or listening to it on iTunes or Stitcher are basically like, man, how can I improve my life, man? How can I use this to improve my life? And the reality of the reality being the feedback loop, should I say it right? That how does that sift out the bullshit in your life, or how does that sift out, like, let's say a dude with an emotional problem, maybe that from martial arts or from hypnosis or NLP and all that sort of stuff, but how does that work or where does he get started in his life?
The very first thing is most guys who do have emotional problems or you know or what is their locus of control? Like are they at cause or are they at effect? That's the first thing in any fucking problem as far as I'm concerned, is if you're at effect, if it's other people, the world, that shit's just happening to me, you have to change that. You have to become at cause for everything. And if you can do that, you know, and that's not the ultimate truth. I don't control gravity. I don't control the sun. I don't control what other people think about me. But if I can keep my outlook as I'm the cause of this, you know, I am at cause. Now, how am I affecting what's happening out there? You know, and if I can change what I'm doing, it's going to change your outer world, right? So if you kind of look at, you know, just a piece of clay out there, and you're yelling at the piece of clay, you know, stop being a piece of clay. Why are you doing this to me? And instead you reach out and you turn that piece of clay. You've affected that clay. You're now at cause. And that's what you have to look at your world that way and say, look, even if shit is happening to you, you have to look at it and say, how am I causing this? Right? I'm not saying you're causing it. What I'm saying is that's going to get you out of being at the effect of the problem and get you to be proactive. Right. When I get armbarred, shit, hey, good job. You know, you beat a black belt. Good job. Wow, fantastic. That wasn't you beating me. That was me beating me. You know, I'm not going to say that in cocky. I'll give people accolades. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to, you know, people are better than me. But in the back of my mind, for me to progress and get better and to learn, I have to go, what is the cause of my own ignorance that's allowing this to happen, or that's affecting this?
Yeah, so this is interesting because this gets into this whole concept of blame, and where I see us now big time as a culture. It's such a bummer with the internet and so much communication. The internet's great because there's so much information, you know, like podcasts like these or the 21 Convention itself. But it also builds us this detachment. Like people can talk shit more. People are more pointing the finger about stuff. The whole idea of blame and that concept in our lifestyles, I hear you basically saying you can't, you know, get involved with that. And I had a discussion with you previously. I mean, we've obviously talked a lot, but I remember you saying this. You said, I'm not going to go so far to say that a woman getting, you know, beaten by her husband is attracting that. But even in a situation like that, now these are my words talking, is I'd say that there is a responsibility. Now, don't get me wrong. You know, there's victimization. You get shit done to you. That's fucked. But your only route out of that is taking responsibility and owning what you have. And I'll tell you this from, like, let's say an abuse standpoint or being attacked or you really had no power over the situation. If you're holding on to that and it's affecting your life, you know, whatever that is, you got bullied, you got your ass kicked, you're a victim of some horrible crime or money or yada, yada, yada. And that affects you to this day. You know, that's in your mind, your life has changed because of it, then you are responsible for that. And I forget where our discussion went last time with this, but when that comes to you make your own reality, how does that fit into your philosophy of, you know, martial arts and life and all this other stuff? Because I know you have a lot to say about it.
It does. I mean, I really live by the absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add specifically what is your own. The JKD philosophy, you know, that's part of it. And I don't want to totally say that, you know, you can't blame others, because sometimes in order to let go, you have to say, you know, no, they were assholes. It was their fault. Mm-hmm. And what you just said is, yeah, if you continue to hold on to that and let it affect you, that's your fault. And that's the same thing of, you don't control your emotions, but you control your responses to your emotions. And so, you know, as before a fight, you know, fear starts to take hold of you, you know, as it goes, your response to it, you can use your breathing, other things to dissipate it. And over time, it will shorten and shorten. Doesn't mean you won't have that startle reflex, but your reaction after that startle reflex is going to be diminished. So for me, but at the same time, I want to always maintain what is, you know, because to me, I'm a truth seeker. That's my ultimate, you talk martial arts. A lot of martial arts got into the martial arts because they have some crazy path, the path of Cain or what, from Kung Fu, but ultimately I want to know the way of things, and that means everything. I want to be able to pick out and that is the truth, the way of everything. I want to understand it, and if I can understand it, then I can change and be one with it. So even though I'm saying that I'm at cause and it's my fault, it's really my fault for not seeing the truth as the way things are, right? So I'm uncovering my own ignorance, and that I do feel, it's not so bold as saying, well, I'm creating this, even though sometimes I do that. It's really I have to look at it from that perspective in order to look at it to get out of my own bullshit. Then I can say, okay, first a punch was a punch, then it became something more, and then at the end it was a punch. It's this revolution of where you're at cause, then you have this great revelation, and you realize that there's something bigger than you. But what is that bigger thing? And I have to change in order to understand that. And so then I come back to the beginning where I'm at cause, but only as far as how do I fit in with the bigger picture. And it's this constant ebb of flow, but you're using reality as to, when you come to a point, are you right, are you wrong, or is that and that can change, but and truth is change. Everything's changing. So yeah, your opinion of what's happening can change along with it, but it's really how well are you flowing with what is, and it's your understanding of that, and that means everything. I believe that expression, how you express yourself. I've told you this a bunch of times, but how you do anything is how you do everything. So how you express yourself through tying your shoe can be related to how you express yourself when you throw a punch, can be related to how you express yourself when you're talking to other people, and how you're interacting on the internet. Everything, because to be related to. So ultimately, it's this weird, crazy thing that we call life. What areas are working for you and what are not? And if something is not, what's your part in that? What are you having to create that? Because when things flow, when you get in the zone, it's a whole nother level. And to me, it's like I want to be in that zone more often, and in as many areas of my life as I can, financially, physically, romantically, communicatively, everything. I want to be able to be in the flow with what is. I don't want to have fights, but see, it's a weird dichotomy, because you're getting into that flow. You're trying to gain peace through fighting, right?
Yeah.
So you're not actually fighting things. You're recognizing what's happening and you're flowing with it. It's that flow psychology, really, to me. And
Yeah, no, man. I mean, I'm sorry to kind of interrupt you there, but I just did an interview with Greg Swan, who you guys should check out that podcast, because there's a lot, and that guy talks a lot, right? But he's talking about empathy. His big trip right now is how empathy is this exchange. It's not just doing a good action, it's the feeling, and it could be bad or good. So that means when you put yourself out there and you really put you out there, let's say you get a negative feedback, a dog growls at you, that's what he kept bringing up, or somebody punches you or gets mad, and then you react to it and you're in real time in that moment, then that's truly what he was saying empathy is. And of course, get his book. I could be totally flubbing the thing, but that's what I got from it. But that's what I feel seduction is, and that's what I feel fighting is. That's what I feel everything is that we interact with. That being said, when you were talking, it really kind of flagged in my head, where was the last time that you saw this type of interaction with the world, universe, could be fighting, relationships, life, business? Where did you learn and get into that feedback loop of progression for yourself? Like, where was the last break or revelation for you?
Where I learned it, I think Vunak was a big influence, and a lot of people don't know that guy's a genius. He's a mad genius, but he's a genius.
So who is Paul Vunak? So some people.
Paul Vunak, well, yeah. So he's a pretty famous martial artist. He was a top student under Dan Inosanto, and then when he was kind of young, he started to he really wanted to learn how to fight. So he was testing everything out and got to a pretty high level of street fighting proficiency. And he had a big impact on me as basically integrating the JKD philosophy. Obviously, Bruce Lee is, read his writings. The man was the genius. He wasn't just a genius. He was the genius. He was a pioneer. But his understanding of how to not only train in martial arts, but to approach understanding the truth is really top notch. But for me, when I really, I've experienced it at different times in my life. And I will say it is a direct result of training. In other words, when you and a lot of martial arts artists will have this experience where they kind of, you are in the total moment. It's like the flow psychology. Read that book, Flow.
Right.
Guys like Czechoslovakian or whatever. That's a good book, and it explains how you're totally 100% in the moment. The past and the future does not exist. And it's like you're aware of what's going to happen before it happens, but only because you're flowing so well with what is. And on a physical level, I experienced this. My junior or senior, my senior year playing football, and I was training a lot. I directly equate this to training, because what happens when you're doing the martial arts, you're creating a lot of different connections in your brain, and you're using your body in many different ways, but you're freeing your mind basically because you're using all these different movements. And so what I think is you're getting more neural pathways in your brain that you wouldn't have. And then this is proven, like they give older people, when they do a lot of different physical games and balance and agility and things like that they maintain their cognitive processes. So one could argue it's a higher level of cognitive processes, which to me comes and goes throughout different periods of my life. But when you're in that moment, for example, when this first happened to me, I was my junior or senior in football. I got a clear image of where the quarterback was going to throw the ball before the ball was snapped.
Right.
And as it was snapped, I started running there, completely cutting off. And I believe I was a safety, and I went just behind our line because I knew he was going to throw it on this line. Now, subconsciously, I may have read his body language or whatever. You don't have to get esoteric about it. Our minds can process a shit ton of information. Right. And when I had that, I hit that ball, I intercepted it, and I ran, but and my body was running faster than it ever had before. I was in the moment going, but I was also an observer, to where I was like, holy shit, I've never run this fast. And so there was like, it's like you're immersed in the experience so much that there's a part of you that's observing at the same time.
Yes.
And so you get a lot of insight during that. And I've talked with, Guru and Asana and some other people have had these experiences, and they just call it being in the flow. But it's really, whatever's happening physiologically, neurologically, I would say you are tapping into also the intelligence of the universe. Like there is something that, everything's moving together, and you're not only are you a part of that, but it's happening and why it's happening and how it's going to happen in the next moment, and you're almost ahead of the game. And I would love to have that all the time. So, it's like every question you ever would, if you're in that state and you had a question, it would be answered instantly.
See, this is like the cool shit that I love that you bring to the table about this. Like I said, I did that interview with Greg. If I talk to Mark Otobre or Keith Norris or Skylar Tanner or any of these other guys, they all talk about that moment, as Greg calls it, splendor, that state of mind you get in. But I'm going to jump in here for a second, because you said a lot of stuff that I think really means something. The state that we need to be in is in that flow state, whatever that is, whatever you're passionate about, where you get lost in it. And not enough people do that with their life. But then what you're talking about of being able to read somebody and have it mean everything, because how you do one thing is how you do everything, which used to, fucking piss me off when people would say that. I'd be like, well, so I got a traffic ticket, and like, how does that affect, I'm clearly, let's say, doing good at this move in jiu-jitsu, or I'm clearly doing good at whatever. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But when I actually took a magnifying glass to that traffic ticket, and a point where it made me like analyze myself, like, fuck, why am I getting pissed off? Why am I still mad? In fact, I was going over this with a resentment with somebody the other day. I was like, man, I'm still pissed off at this guy. I can't believe it. Like, it's been 6 years and I'm still angry. Like, what the fuck? And my buddy Dave was like, hey man, write about it and explore it. And I'm like, it's not gonna, but somehow when I do that, I can look at the little pieces, and some of those, there's no real bad or good, but some of those are some great qualities of me, that might even be hidden in that resentment or whatever. And I want to get rid of that, or I want to let that ease. But that could be in the, like, my accomplishment of something else, whatever other thing. And if I look at those things and allow myself to process it, when I get in that state of flow, when I get in that state of mindset of where I have, passion running me, or whatever it is, it could be writing or martial arts or biking or playing music, sex, and I think that's a big metaphor for it. Everything makes sense in a different way, and I can see that. If I have not analyzed myself, or if I've refused to see reality because I'm caught up in whatever, blame or whatever, something outside of myself, it doesn't even have to be that. It could be grandiosity. I now hack out a huge portion of that flow. It's just like what you're talking about. If you get armbarred, you have to see every detail of that, but ultimately it's you beating yourself, I think that's important. If people get involved in their passions, they can really do a lot with it. I didn't mean to hijack your shit, but
no, not at all.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, the other thing too, that with JKD, we believe that the truth exists outside of all set patterns. And if it's in a system or it's a set pattern, it's not the truth. It may contain a picture of the truth, and you can discover the truth through that, I believe, but it's not the ultimate truth. The truth cannot be confined, right? And so all systems, therefore, are not the truth. It's a system of language, a system of seduction, a system of martial arts, and so that's why I always say I want to discover the truth. And so when I approach different martial arts, I look at what's effective in it, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless. And it may not be about the art, but it's about what doesn't work for you. And then adding specifically what is your own, because we do add something to what's out there. In everything we do, you cannot not communicate. Even if you're sitting there nodding your head, you're communicating.
Right.
You're sitting in your room, you're not doing anything, you're still communicating. And so, whether we like it or not, we cannot not be a part of the overall truth, because to not be a part of it is to be to be a systemized, compartmentalized piece of it, right? So in other words, yes, we are a part of the truth, but I think also, some analogies that I use are like, I think my outer world is a direct reflection of what's going on with me. And that if you allow it, you're smart enough to pick up the cues, everybody and everything, every instance around you will echo something that's going on with you. Even if it's just the blot test, whatever, the Rorschach test, whatever it is, where the psychiatrist gives you this, what do you see in this? Even if I'm adding something subconsciously to it, there is a reflection. And especially if you're immersed in a passion or something, that you're in that moment where the feedback comes instantly. That's the difference. Most of the time we're in Lollyland and it's coming back to us, but we're not picking it up. And that's one thing. Society is training us to be so left brain and so focused here. We're losing sight of that big picture. We are constantly in the future with our head or a step behind or with our text message, and it's training us to get out of the present moment, which is really unfortunate, because to be honest, that's where this flow state is.
Totally, yeah.
This is where it's at. You still have to have your future projection. You still have to learn from your past, but to be totally present here now, that's a difficult thing to do. And the further we get away from it, the further we get away from truth. And that is the truth. So, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this convention, because, we need this. Like we're systematically, as men, being emasculated and being trained not to be that expression, and then it's going to be changed into just this automated fucking, corporate do-gooder who always follows the rules and just obeys authority. And that's, but and a bigger thing, it's where are we compartmentalizing ourselves to what is out here that we don't want to look at. What aspect of yourself are you cutting yourself off from? So this is a movement that's happening, and we have a counter movement, which is society. I'm not saying this is an anarchist thing, but I'm saying more movements where people are like striving, like they can feel something's not right.
Right.
You can feel that, man, I want more. I want to do more. I want to express I don't want to fucking sit in a cubicle all day and do this. I don't want to have to leave my family for 8 to 12 hours a day just to put food on the table. Something's not right about the system. And part of that is because we're getting away from this place where we have tremendous power. I mean, when you're in that state, I don't give a fuck what kind of drug you're on. That's the best drug. And we get glimpses of it sometimes when we do drugs, right? But when you're in it, it's like it blows your perceptual blinders off, and it's really that to me is the biggest thing. Like martial arts does that for me when I train. When I get to my training, man, I get because you have to be in the present. That's the thing with training for real violence. You're using the feedback you went through the training. You're in the present moment. Otherwise, you get immediate feedback of a punch in the face. So it's you have to constantly train yourself to be here, and that's why it's one of the best methods. You can do that through sports and through other things as well, and I think ultimately that understanding of the way will transfer over into all areas of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, man, you brought up actually a lot of good stuff. I think we're living in captivity. I mean, it's so difficult. Like when you study the sex habits of rats, they're much different in the wild than they are in captivity, or monkeys or chimpanzees. And I think for humans too, we were never meant to be in this environment. So that being said, what's the dysfunction and what is the function? What is that for you? How do you live in the best possible expression of your independence, who you are, your expression?
That's the battle is really, ebb and flow, because we're inundated with it constantly. And so the more time, and I personally, the more time I spend on the computer, looking at my phone, staring at the TV, I can feel it. It makes me, my wife yells at me. She's like, you're always on that goddamn phone. And I'm sure everybody else is, but it does something to your mind. And I don't think, there's this whole move to move in harmony with machines, and that's not it. It's not harmony. Right. It's harmony with nature. And I don't believe in man-made global warming, but it's being in nature and being out in the world present, being amongst other people, not staring at them through this fucking screen. Right. Even though this is helpful and this can open doors and we can reach way more people than we possibly could. It's like the internet. That's why they want to shut it down, because now we have this free flow of information, and it will always find a way to use it against itself. But then you have the opposite push of, we got to get them back in this box. Let's even design houses so they're in a box, and let's make them go straight to work, sit in a box and stare at a box. And it's all metaphorical. To me, it's your box, and the box is ultimately your mind. But we have this metaphor of that box all around us all the time, constantly reminding us that get back in the box, get back in the box. But the truth exists outside the box. It can exist in the box too. Don't get me wrong. You can find the truth through a system, but you have to look outside every now and then to know what the truth looks like. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing. It's not, you don't want to discard everything. Don't discard technology. But we as, first of all, men, and then human beings, have to understand what's happening. We are, life is much different than from when we were kids. Even with my nephews, those guys are playing video, and I play video games with them too. But they aren't outside. They aren't interacting with other kids the way they used to. Right. They still get their time in the playground, but it's not like it used to be. And so where are we going as a society? And I think people can feel that more and more and more. But we have to be able to understand where our bullshit is, and basically where are we in the box? Because everybody's in the box.
Totally, totally. Where's the function and where's the dysfunction? Like even what used to be, 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, 4, 5, 6 was still a part of this completely unnatural way of living. And so our influences are just so bizarre. And, one thing that I really get from, where mainly seduction has been like the template window for me, is that what we actually say, at least in the systems that I come up with and all that sort of stuff, is that there's nature and nature can't be touched. That's the reality. That's the truth. Nature does not need science, but man, needs science to understand nature. And so then there's culture, and that's like all of us influencing this mad way. We need to have it. I think we're genetically predispositioned to have to want to be a part of people and connect and all that sort of stuff. And then there's you, the individual. And in order to get the truth in nature, you have to explore yourself, use culture as the feedback loop, and then you can know what friendship really is, what sex really is, what all these other different things. And and I could make the same metaphor for martial arts. There is the truth of what is happening in nature. There's my body. There's the mechanics and all those things happening, and gravity and physics and yada yada yada. That doesn't need me to define it, but we need to. And then there's this culture of, let's say, jujitsu, or a culture of a certain group you might be in, that you might be sparring with, and then you go to another group, and let's say you kick ass in your group, but in that new group, your game plan's thrown off. You're hit in the face. And I think this is important about one of the key things that you're talking about. The difference between MMA and real fighting is because when something happens that you've never experienced, or you see blood, or you get hit in a way that just you can't think, or when you get a concussion, stuff changes in your body that you can't control. If you're not used to that and you can't deal with that, you're done. And the only way to search for the truth in that, I believe, is to start with the individual and start moving that out. But, it's like we think we know better. We're so obsessed with information, yet we're so unwilling to experience. And information is great. I love it. I love learning. And, this is a funny thing with me is, same as me, Maria will be like yelling at me about, because I'll be on the computer for like, after this, man, I'll probably be on for forever. There's not a day that goes by that it's not 10 hours of working on this stuff. And hey, I enjoy life. Then I do the biohack thing. And this is actually something that I have a pet peeve towards. I do the biohack thing of like, okay, I'm going to work out for 2 minutes. I'm going to bust ass for 2 minutes because the body and this and that and the science says and yada, yada, yada. Man, I'm not living life. You see, my values are that society has said that work is more important than going out and experiencing, or that doing this or having some status, or it's like, man, Steve Mayeda blowing up, or whatever the different companies that I'm involved in going, rather than this moment. And so my value is not working out. My value is not family. My value is not nature or dogs. My value has now become working and being a part of this thing and being successful in it, and then hacking my way to get the little, the badge of family life. And that's not how we should be living,
I think everybody, and I was lucky to be around, the martial arts scene and actually have, Vunak. Vunak was another pioneer in that he discovered the Gracies. He was one of the very first people to discover the Gracies. And so he was training with Hoyce and Hickson and everybody in their garage back when nobody knew who they were. But because he was a real fighter, one of his students said, hey, you got to go check these guys out. And but he had always just so I got my earliest exposure to Hickson then. And Hickson is, if you ask any Brazilian back in the day, and even today, they just say he's on another level, not just with skill, but his thinking. And I think everybody could do themselves a favor and look at the last interview he just did with Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And he, but really, the guy, he's much more like back in the day. I think he was, you could see his philosophy as he lived it because he was such a man. But he had this. I would say that there's nobody on the planet that thinks like this guy, or at least back then. And so, but the insight that he said, if you really listen to that interview, is he does not have a set schedule during his day. He doesn't know what he's going to do tomorrow. And that's not to say he doesn't have seminars scheduled and things like that. There are things he has scheduled, but ultimately he listens to himself and his body. If he feels like he needs to stretch, he stretches. If he's hungry, he needs to eat good food, he needs to eat good food. If he feels like he's a little low down, he's going to go surf and recharge. And he's constantly looking and, basically feeling himself and his, I dare I say his soul, listening to that inner voice to guide him to what he's to do next. And that is so different than, so he may spend 8 hours a day on the mat, or he may spend 8 hours a day surfing, or he may just go in the park and stretch and then have a juice and go converse with friends. He doesn't have, and I know he's not rolling with money and all this stuff, but that has never been his focus. I know enough to say that. I can't say I know Hickson very well, but from what I've observed and knowing his students and talking over the years and being involved in that community, he's always had this philosophy. And I think people can really learn from that. How many of us really don't have a schedule tomorrow? Fuck, I know what I've got to do. I know what I have to do. I'm beholden to the work I have to do to bring in money. But so how do I change that focus so I can go out, if I want to go train tomorrow for 12 hours, I should be able to do that. What's stopping me? Well, repercussions of not having a paycheck and doing, all these things are stopping me. And then I ask myself, would that stop Hickson? I think Hickson would be like, I think today I'm going to train. You know what I mean? Like, well, okay. I think, no, today I'll spend on the beach. Like, whoa, that is, but he's not just doing that out of aloofness or ego. He is doing that because he asks himself, what do I need today as a, to grow, not just as a person, like, my needs or what do I feel like doing, but he's saying, what direction do I need to go to? And he sits and he listens. And that's the thing is that's what's happening is when we have a saying is that when the messenger never sleeps until the message is delivered. So and that's what we're feeling is our inner messenger is saying, dude, no, take some time for yourself, or do this, relax, or enjoy this, or you have an opportunity over here, and instead of being at the screen, maybe you need to get up and go in that coffee shop and meet that girl or whatever it is. And we have this inner knowing that is still yelling at us, but we're stuck. And so internally we feel this struggle, and I'll dare say that society is engineered to keep us from that inner voice, to keep us away from really discovering that we have the answers. We can figure a way to be one with what is and go, and still have it work out for us. But we have to really discover where we're at in that box, and you can only do that by getting out there and pushing things, pulling things, and whether it's in business or talking or being in the moment present. And it's not to say you won't create something, but you have to really use that reality as your feedback. Really get out there and really, like, is this working? Is this, and don't discount how you feel inside either. It's not just out there, it's out there and in here. When you get those two to line up, that's when you get the flow. In my opinion, it's like suddenly it's like boom, all the answers, and you'll kick yourself for not seeing it before. But man, I really think like Hickson's that guy who lives it, and that's the key. He's a modern day master, and not just because he's a martial artist, but because of that, I think. And man, very few people do that.
Well, you had actually said that Vunak had said that he was one of the. And this is Vunak who, you didn't say this, but Vunak trained the Navy SEALs. He trained SEAL Team 6. He is like one of the most revolutionary guys in fighting dynamics. And you had said that he believed that Hickson was one of the greatest guys ever in all martial arts and just the whole mentality. But I think, what's interesting that you talk about is like, I don't know Hickson. I don't know any of the Gracies or any of that stuff, but his mentality is so much different than his brothers, and totally different. And what was interesting about him in that sort of liberation that he had, and I think this is important to say, to be able to do what you want, to be able to express, he also knew what expression was. He also got to that flow state. He got to that point of passion, and that passion defined him in not the carelessness. You know, when you look at a baby, you know, my son is 8 weeks old and he wants to do stuff, you know, and he's looking at stuff and his body can't. And, you know, he wants to follow things. And he, you know, he's sitting in this little chair, the little mamaru thing, and he's looking, and I'm just like, man, he's looking at us in the kitchen talking, you know, but with everything, his mind is set on that. And he wants to do that. And then when he gets in the kitchen, he'll be like, man, what the hell is this? What was the big deal here? But it'll be something, and it will be that sort of propulsion of self into the world and to interact with it. And that is the true, I believe, joy of humanity, the greatest gift that, you know, life has to offer. You know, that's one of the things that I always talk about with my personal philosophies of, you know, just life, is that all of life is meant to express itself. And if you don't, then somehow something's going to be off. It doesn't matter if you get a good result, it'll be off. And we're doing that with our lives. You know, that's what man has become. A man has become no longer Ray Romano, which sucked, as, you know, not that he's a personal bad dude, but, you know, that show and just the whole idea of this kind of pushover guy that just kind of goes through life or whatever. But now it's something that man has become, this machine of rules, of doing the right thing, saying the right thing. And man, fuck all that shit. You know, if I can't go out, this is something that bothers me about the seduction scene, is that if I can't go out and just be myself, then I'm losing it. If I have to be alpha, if I have to be a presence, if I have to be an archetype, if I have to be a certain set of rules that a man has to play by, other than the shit that I'm feeling in my body. I mean, the biggest core to seduction is like, I have a hard dick and I want to put it somewhere. How can I learn the language that allows me to do that? If I lose touch with that, then I'm losing touch with God, the greatest thing, that the thing which is going to put us in touch with the flow. If I lose touch with, and I'll tell you this, because it's funny, because I always talk to you, I'm like, man, I never get in fights. My whole thing is if somebody wants to talk shit to you, they're not going to fucking fight, man. They're going to talk shit, and if you don't want to fight, it takes two to tango, you know. If you don't want to fight, nobody's going to pick on you in that way, or they'd really have to try. You know, there needs to be a fight back, even if they like punch you and you just do nothing and are like, well, hey man, yeah, but it's pretty hard to maintain that state. But anyway, this dude, and I remembered the second one just now, this dude, we were at this club and this guy starts hitting on, my friend starts hitting on his wife. We didn't know that, right? And it wasn't a big deal. I mean, Jesus Christ, like who gets mad about that and why? But this dude was real small, and that's why. He was real small, like real short, like 5'5" or something.
How tall you are?
Yeah. I'm 5. Actually, technically, we went to the Texas Institute of Fitness, or yeah, whatever, one of those places. But it's awesome. You can actually get the DEXA scan, all that sort of shit. I'm 5'7 3/4. So there you go. Not even 5'8. Not even 5'8. But anyway, my son is already taller than me. He's 8 weeks old, so he's huge. Well, you've seen him, but anyway, the thing is that this dude, the husband guy, got real pissed, and then his friend got real pissed. He started like shoving my friend, you know, really hard, like really aggressively. And I was like, man, nothing's going to happen, but he's not stopping with this guy. And we were at a club. So I just put my hand on his chest and was like, hey man, stop. He was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, man, shut the fuck up. And then his wife starts getting in my face, and I'm like, really? Jeez, man. And so I was like, you're really getting this mad about that? And I was telling him about his wife, and that which got him more mad. I'm like, dude, you're not going to do shit. And then his buddy started to get into it. I was like, holy shit, man. And I just thought to myself, is this worth it? Because it like switched in that mode of like, all right, I'm going to fucking take this dude out. Like I see the line with the other guy, and, you know, just split second thought. But I just thought, is it worth it? You know, is it worth it? I fucking know what it's like to have like my hand broken, my knees get fucked up, to whatever, you know, to get a concussion, man. I'm not thinking right for 6 months. So either for myself or for him. And then like we were in the way back of the club, so the exit plan would have not been good, and it had an upstairs, so you'd have to, it just would have been fucked up, right?
I mean,
But yeah, I was like, hey man, all right, stop. We're going over here. If you want to follow us, we're gonna get the bouncers or whatever. But fuck off. But it was one of those moments where it was just like, holy shit, I never get in this situation because I always talk myself out of it. But I was like, wow, all right, let's go. And just to me, it was like, man, hurting somebody on that level was just not the best thing to do.
No, you want to train. You want to train for those moments where you don't have an option. We just that story I talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't worth it. We had an option to leave. We left. I mean, we all fired. We probably could have fared. I could have probably taken that guy out. Who knows? But that's the point. Yeah, you always ask yourself. You train for the worst, but you train for when you don't have an option. And I love the excuse when people say like, "Well, I've never been in a fight, or nobody ever messes with me, so I've never been in a violent situation, so I don't need to train." But I'll tell you that 100% of the people who have never been murdered before either, right? So think about that. Shouldn't happen.
What about
That's true.
what about that 1% that didn't get murdered from the murder?
Yeah, right. I only got maimed or raped.
No, man, but the Jesus Christ. But the thing is like I've been in fights and they I wrestled, so I just take the guys down and like fuck them up or something. And to be honest, man, I did so much martial arts as a kid, none of that. Did none of it. Whenever I got in a fight when I was in my 20s, just wrestled, man.
That's why. Remember going back. That is making my point earlier of that's why experience is important, because you have to test it how it's actually going to come out in reality. And that doesn't mean you have to bang and go hard. You do have to every now and then and put the gear on and stuff. But hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, good. But using that, you have to test yourself to really see how you're going to react when it goes down. And if you don't know that, that's why you have to have reality as your feedback mechanism, because you're never going to know how you're going to respond unless you put yourself in that situation before you ever got there, right? I mean, that's what practice is for. And you don't just, like Bruce Lee said, to learn how to swim, you don't just jump into the deep end. You take steps and learn how to paddle and hold your breath and all whatever else you need to do first. But you still have to at some point test it. You can do it safely. You can do it, I don't bang and I'll go hard, but I don't sit like a boxer and take brain damage, and there are ways to do it nowadays and good armor and things like that. But it's the philosophy of really, I believe there's a mechanism at work in the universe or the world or what have you, where when you're done with something, let's say it's smoking or it's getting mad or getting over your ex or whatever it is, right? When you want to take that next step or your next belt level, you want to look at it like that. But really seems to happen a lot when you make a statement to yourself like, I'm done with this, well, that what's going to happen is when you least expect it, your ex is going to call her. You're going to be, something's going to happen that's going to trigger you to want to smoke that you did not see coming. It comes out of left field and it takes you completely off guard. That's the test of when and how you'll respond, because you're never really truly over something unless you can prove it in reality. And I think, because I've had this experience in many other areas, that the mechanism that's at where it's almost like the universe is self-aware and it comes back and it tests you, but it tests you when you never expect it. And that's the true test. Like, oh, were you really over smoking? That's why you're going fuck in the corner. And then you can use it as a blame. Well, I was just triggered. I don't smoke now. Well, yeah, but you're not where you thought you were, But it comes back around to really see if you're like, no, I'm done with that. And maybe it does once or twice. And I'm sure addictions like that. Sure, people get all and things, but to me, it's really a universal law at work.
Yeah,
just in my experience.
I was going to say that what you were talking about sounded so similar to kind of like the idea of addiction, or there's all these different theories about it or whatever. But one of the things that I have experience with, and especially just witnessing it, is that if somebody if somebody stops, like if they have a major problem with drugs or whatever, and if you do, you can listen to this podcast, but you're probably better off getting some like real help in some areas. I think there's a lot of terrible information on addiction, which really pisses me off because people, I mean, we know people that have died from it. And it fucking sucks, man. You know, that did not have to happen. Like those things did not have to happen. I mean, it's crazy. One of our training buddies, I was training with him, you know, a week and a half. You know, we beat the crap out of each other. And, you know, I have a scar from it. I'm actually quite proud of it. But, you know, he split my eye. Jesus. And that was an interesting moment. I should tell you about it. But he just split my eye, hung out a couple days later. Some shit happened in his life, a few little things. And, you know, he was off to the races with, you know,
a week and a half, he was dead.
Yeah, yeah.
As a teacher, that was my student and friend, you know. But I could either blame myself or I didn't look at the signs or I didn't, and you could do the same thing. But yeah, the reality is we didn't, and it happened. And you know, that's the other side of life is like, fuck, I should have blocked that punch, but I got punched. So let's keep going. You know, don't stop. You gotta keep going. And unfortunately, it happened the way it did. You know, and that's, you know, but yeah, absolutely. That keeps me up at night sometimes.
Oh, man. I'm such good friends with the dude and was especially close with him like right around that time. And, you know, you know what he'd be saying, but when we were fighting in my yard, actually, dude, this pissed me off so bad. It pissed me off because it was at that moment of when you get hurt, when you get fucked up, right? And when you got punched by him, I mean, that guy didn't get too many punches in on me, but he
was strong as a
he gave me many concussions. And Jesus Christ, man, this guy. So he shoulder bumps me, and I was like, cool, break, boom. You know, so on the shoulder break, I wasn't defending. So you're always saying defend. I had done so much sparring that was like, you know, training or helping guys train for their fights, you know, or whatever. And we were all trying to be nice.
Yeah. I mean, that's discovering the cause of your ignorance. You get caught in a pattern. Training creates those patterns, and, you know, the ref, you know, you guys clinch, there's a shot, and you break, your hands are down. You can't do that shit in the street.
Yeah.
So we always train to never, even when you disengage in drills, to always be ready, because you train yourself to be ready. So even this day when I go slow, I'm still watching my opponent. Even my hands are down.
Oh, you're good with that. Yeah.
I'm looking out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that you can't do that, but you have to be ready.
You are hardwired to watch out for that shit because the way that you guys train.
Yeah, I mean, we really did, and that's the thing, is it can be trained. Like what you know, you asked earlier, like how do you change in your mind when you're scared, or then suddenly there's two people or a chair comes out and, you know, somebody throws something from the crowd or whatever. How do you adapt to that? And it can be trained. Like you can train your mind to just adapt. But I think it does go counterintuitive to a lot of our natural instincts, you know, and because, you know, even as warfare, you know, evolved and fighting evolved. I mean, people have learned different tactics, and it's just anything can happen. And so, yeah, in the wild, you know, maybe a tiger could jump out, or you know, maybe things were a little more crazy.
Man, maybe you get a cut and it gets infected. I mean, shit,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah. But I think, you know, it can be trained, and I think you see, like, from the days of fighting the tigers to the days of, you know, having two lines go, that, you know, the people going with two lines are going to have pretty good mass attack fighting, because you're fighting this guy and this guy and this guy, hack and slash, and you can train your instincts to adapt with what, but it comes with training, and you have to kind of evolve with it. But our natural instinct is the fight or flight. It's the one-on-one, because we come out alone as a child. You know, we don't form the group cohesion till later. And so it's really your natural instinct is to take care of what's in front of you, you know.
Man,
and you
this is like such a crazy thing with fighting. And, you know, people talk about it in jiu-jitsu, like get past the panic zone, you know, get good with chokes and like hold on a little bit longer, don't panic, get comfortable with that, and, you know, learn when to tap and all that sort of shit. But you know what, from striking and real fighting, whenever I've gotten a fight and I'm winning, you know, which back in my 20s, just wrestle the guy down and like fucking spit on him and like fish hook his mouth or something and say, who's the fucking master? And then have him cry, steal his shoes and make him get naked and walk home or whatever the fuck it was. But like, you know, I'd take the guy down and nobody knew what to do. So I just do that. I felt fucking good, right? I felt good. And then like when Matt hit me, because it was like shoulder bump, and then I'm like, cool. And then I just see this fist, like, and just this stoic look on his face, because I could remember he's just like, boom. And it was just, and in that moment, you go through a process. And if you're not used to it, you know, and you get rocked, because this guy could hit like with insane power, man. And basically, it's like, oh, fuck. And then you're like hurt, you're in pain. You're like, shit, what's going on? And then you're pissed. You know, it's about 2 seconds before. So if you're in a fight, 1 or 2 seconds of lag time is not good. In you know, if you're fighting, and like we were talking about earlier, you're whatever you are, you have some advantage. You start fucking somebody up and you're kicking ass. You feel good. You feel on top of the world. And then one thing happens that inflicts pain that you can't avoid. You know, that your endorphins can't override. It's like, it's a pretty insane moment. And I think that guys who aren't aware of that, you can just see a fight switch. You know, we were talking about that too. Like if you get in a fight, you like armbar a guy and you're in a street fight, or you do something like that. As soon as you let go, they fuck with you. You have to hurt them, or you have to inflict like defeating pain.
Yeah.
You know, either with head trauma or choke them out or hurt their knee or something, you know.
You know, you can see it too. You can actually go on YouTube and find some fights. You can see when guys have in that fight, the first time they ever got hit, or you know, actually some of the girl fights, you can see that too. They just shut out. Not everybody does that. Some people are natural born fighters, you know, but some people, it's such a shock to the system that they freeze. And I had my very first fight when I was a young kid. I froze. A guy hit me like 8, 9, 10 times, and I was just like a deer in headlights. My whole side of my jaw was bruised for 2-3 months, on my whole cheek. And I just remember freezing, not my whole body, everything was like not just frozen, like what the fuck was that? And it's that happens. That's why the experience has to be, you have to know how you're going to react once you get hit. And some fighters can go a long time and not know how they're going to react when they're in trouble. You know, that's why sometimes guys can have a really good war and come out of it a much better fighter because they were tested and they doubted themselves. Like me, I'm pretty well tested, and I'm pretty much know that if I were to go in a cage fight and get started to get beat down, I'd quit. I'm not that tough. You know, I'm not built like that. I don't. You know, not all the time. I think I wouldn't fold in a street fight. I would still try to survive. But some people are just like, they can go into those deep waters, and that's what makes the fighter, you know, that they can base their whole game off of that. And other guys don't even know how they'll react when they get hit. And you've got to know, like, I know how I would do in those situations. And because I've proven to myself that I can get through it. I've done it before. B, to me, it's not worth it. I'm not willing to put myself through that, so I'm not really that tough to do it. But it's the experience of knowing, like, when guys go into MMA and they get a really good training camp, and the guys are beating the shit out of them, their training partners, and their training camp is harder than their actual fight. It's real hard to finish those guys. They may get caught in something, but when because there's something that happens, it's almost like their whole being gets stronger as a result of getting beat down. And this is the truth. And that's not the recommended training method all the time, but when you have those experiences behind you, you keep those to a certain extent, if that makes sense. So just getting your ass beat, you know, may save you in 5 years to know that, okay, I can get through this. I've gone harder. Or it happens like, I used to wrestle on Fridays with Doc Snow. He's how big is that guy?
Yeah.
And I just use it as a time to calm my emotions and bide my time on the bottom and try not to panic and turn the tides. But what happens as a a result of that is that when I go wrestle other people, they're not nearly as tough or strong, and I just naturally beat them because I'm already used to a higher level.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's putting yourself in those situations, the experiences that changes you on some level.
Man,
and but you don't want to overdo it. Like
right, yeah.
You know, Matt Hughes in their training camp used to be notorious for hurting guys. And
the Militich.
Yeah. And so a lot of guys, you know, the injury to reward factor is it gets too much at some point. It in my opinion, it's almost more important to go there at least once or twice when you know it's going to happen, but to get taken in those deep waters than it is to do it all the time, you know. But if you don't do it, if you don't experience it, you're never going to know. I don't care how much you know, unless you really get to that point of realism. And that's the same thing with pickup. If you're in the mirror and you're just talking, doing your openers, but you never go do it, you're never going to know how you're going to perform or if it's actually going to work.
Yeah,
you have to have that feedback. And the guy who just says, "Oh, fuck it, I'm going to go do it."
No, you got to bang, man.
Always good.
You got to have sex.
But that's that's why it's experience of knowing how you'll react when shit hits the fan. And how are you going to know how you're going to react when shit hits the fan unless you've tried to simulate it or been around it or seen it or you know, but more importantly, been in it, you know.
Man, I want to bring this up because we were talking about addiction. We were talking about challenging yourself and not challenging too far. And when you think about it, let's because I was thinking about this and you explained it, you know, you don't want to go too far, but human beings are this amazing fucking species. In fact, all living things. And so it's beyond human beings. It's because we're a part of this organism life. We have this thing that knows how to ride that line of where we're supposed to go, but none of us are riding that fucking line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's the thing is it's the ebb and flow. Life moves like this. It goes in cycles, right? So you approach it and go back, approach it and go back, you know, and then when you approach it, you get all this stress and then you break through that and you're on a new level. Then you got to go back.
It's so funny because now the men's movement, it's like, you got to do this. You got to, and there's these people, and I feel it too. You know, I'm a man that's in this world or whatever, but it's basically like you push too hard and we're getting so out of it's either we're not pushing or we're pushing too hard, but we don't realize that we already have that awesome design in us because we're a part of life, you know, because bacteria has it too. We know how to grow just to the point of maximum level and not go too far. And when we get out of the nature of that and we start searching for this definition outside of ourselves or this like icon on TV, that's not us. You know, it was like, Greg asked me, he's like, "Steve, but you'll never play in the NBA." And I was like, but that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy basketball. That doesn't mean that I can't have an expression of it. That doesn't mean that, or with women. I mean, it's like you see it with I really think pickup will ruin people's lives if they do it, if they keep it about approaching, man. I honestly think if you make your whole life, I mean, everybody this day and age, I know you were never really involved in it, but like knows people that were into pickup, and everybody knows that guy that got really like into it and just approaches people and he can do it, but he has no fucking friends anymore. You know, his only friends are like these POA dudes, and he can't even think outside of this construct of this great, awesome, very human thing that is sex is like foreign to him, and he can only think in this model of, you know, value and this assumption about humanity made up by like nerdy, idiotic people. It's fucking sad. And so this thing that was supposed to help out with masculinity is like this, now it's part of the distortion. And I think we see that with fighting. We see that with pushing ourselves. It's like I was saying with myself and goals, 10 hours in front of the computer. What am I serving? Am I serving my values, or am I serving the confines and calling those my values? It's just such a thing that I think we all need to take a step back from and go like, hey, what is the ideal man? And let's figure out what that is. What are your ideals? And how do you live in them? How do you live by them? You know, what is the real you?
Well, and that's the thing. People get stuck up in an external definition of that. To me, it should be as unique as a fingerprint. You know, you discover what your ideal man is. You know, What is your idea of it? And then you discover your cause of your own ignorance within that model. Like you said, yeah, you can watch the NBA. Just because you're never going to play in the NBA doesn't mean you can't watch it and enjoy it. Doesn't mean you can't learn from it and learn from other people. But ultimately, people have to. It's a self discovery. You have to discover it within yourself. Like this whole alpha male thing. I love it. I crack up at it because that's just one distortion, one extreme, and that works for some people. Some people truly are the alpha male. Hickson's really an alpha male, but he's not the dickhead side of the alpha male. That's not it. But being, to me, my ideals are not, not even close to that. I mean, I want to be just as much in touch with my feminine side as I am with my masculine side. And I want to be able to have the whole gamut of human expression available to me so I can pick what fits with that particular moment. Not to say that I'm changing who I am or I'm being false just to get along with you, but if that's what's needed in that particular moment, I want to have that available to me. I don't want to judge, but I want to be the alpha male if that's what's required, and I want to let you. Sometimes I'll let you be the alpha male just so you can beat yourself, or you look like an idiot, or whatever. It's a card. I don't have to be the alpha male. I'll just let you do all the talking. You beat yourself or whatever, and then maybe I'll be alpha just to get a reaction out of you. And then when you react, I attack. That's in a fighting sense, but maybe even a conversation sense. And so I have no problem being the beta. That's how I get along with people. That's how I get along with a lot of the instructors I get along and gotten along with, because I have no dog in the fight. That, hey, there are certain areas of their life that I'm not going to, that I'm learning how not to do, but there's other areas that all right, I want to learn how to fight. I want to learn this area from you. I want to learn how you communicate. I want to learn how you're thinking about these things. But ultimately, it's my experience, and I'm using my reality, my interaction. You're not telling me what the truth is. You're telling me what your version of the truth is, and then from there, I'm trying to discover my own. And that's what people aren't doing. They're searching for this. Well, just tell me what an ideal man is, and I'll be it. I have to have, jacked, have X number of dollars in the bank. I've got to have a FICO of 820 at least. I've got to, have a car. I've got to have a girlfriend or 50 girlfriends, whatever it is. I have to talk in a certain way, walk in a certain way. And, those things are techniques. Walking and changing your physiology, it's a technique that you may or may not need someday. And yes, money is important. You need to, if you fall into the trap of, well, I don't need money to be happy, good luck having fun standing in the bread line or on the corner. Maybe that's for you, but you still see, it doesn't mean that that's the end all be all, or that's what an ideal man is. Yet it could be a tool for for an ideal man. And money is important. I see, there is value in it.
Totally.
If it's not for you, then that's your expression of the ideal man. But we have to get to this point where we're, the problem is people just don't even know where to begin looking. They don't have any sort of philosophy. And the biggest killer for any man, the biggest thing that will kill any person, any man, is a lack of purpose. If you don't have some direction or purpose, even if it's not your ultimate truth or ultimate purpose, that'll fucking kill you. I've gone through it. I've gone through periods of my life where I had no purpose. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I wasn't hopeless, but I had no direction. And that to me it can create apathy, but it will kill the soul of a person when you don't have a purpose. So just because you're wondering whether you have value or whether what you're doing, 10, 15 hours on a day, trying to get your business going and it doesn't feel right, or you feel like it's taking away, you have purpose, right? That's more important. If you didn't, I would say that is the biggest soul killer on the planet, But unfortunately, we've gotten this counterfeit purpose of where we're being told what that purpose is, or we're being told what that ideal man is, what's politically correct. That's external. So we have to, maybe sometimes we use that purpose to make movement, but the ultimate goal is you got to find out from yourself. Not even just find out, decide what your purpose is, and you can change it at any moment. That's the beauty of it. You can, my purpose yesterday might not be my purpose today, but I set the direction. I decide. And maybe you have a grander purpose. Maybe we all do, but it's up to you whether you want to accept it. And it's just equally as valid as if you go, you know, I'm not going to do that. My purpose is to not do anything. That's still you being proactive and
Right.
going back to that starting point of being at cause rather than you know, shit just happening to you or searching for answers outside of yourself.
The cause then the effect. You know, it's funny because the modern alpha male doesn't fucking know who he is. You know, it's such an image. And you were talking about this beta stuff or going along, which I've actually seen you do to like influence, you know, to get yourself in a high leverage social situation, you know, or professional or learning situation, which is an interesting thing. But everybody's so caught up in this like alpha construction or whatever, man, and they can't even look you in the eye, you know.
Yeah, you know, I like it for group dynamics to, you know, to when you walk in a group to know who the alpha is in the group because they influence the other people. And so, you know, sometimes if you go in and you confront the alpha in whatever way it is that you'll turn everybody off, you know. So to me, it's interesting in how group dynamics and that whole thing works because it is natural. It is natural to in every group to have a leader. Sometimes the leaders change depending on, you know, who's got the mic or whatever. To me, it's interesting, but to always be it's almost it's a character trait to be used, but not to be identified with. And people are identifying with it, so they're only identifying with this part of the scale. What about the rest of the scale? You're just deleting all this other stuff. You don't have behavioral flexibility because you're this all the time. And my dad said that, you know, real men do this, this, and this. You know, well, I have an idea of an ideal man too, and it doesn't involve fucking fixing shit around the house. That's just not something I do. You know what I mean? It drives my wife crazy, but I don't think of myself as any less of a man. And can I fix it? Yeah, I can fix it. You know, can I you know, be boisterous and loud and fucking, you know, just be a dick? Yeah, absolutely. But it's a behavioral choice. Wow. You know, as long as I know that. But sometimes though, sometimes you're anytime you say I am, you're deleting something. So that's something to be careful of. Like when I say I don't need to fix anything, but what, you know, then I have to go, well, in what other areas am I saying, well, I don't need to do that? And I do it with my business. I do it with some of the things I don't want to do with business. And if I don't feel like calling you back, that's more out of, you know, I just don't do that. I don't feel the need to do that. So, but it's not really arrogance, but it's more out of, now, I don't know, aloofness or kind of, you know, just being, I don't want to be made to have to do stuff. And that could come from my childhood. You know, I don't want to have to call people back. I don't want to have to. But then again, I have to look at the reality and say, well, what's the end result of that is you lose business. If you're not taking care of your customers, you know, those are the things where it may work in this area of your life, but it'll fuck you up over here. Constantly, you know, that's why you should have it all available and open and say, okay, I'll use it over here, but not over here. Unless this happens, then I'll use it. And always, you know, but I can't, you can do it. You can use it. It's there for you. If you don't, you know, if you put yourself in a box, just be sure that you can take yourself out and reinsert yourself over here.
Yeah.
Over here at will.
I think that, you know, that's the whole thing, like nature, the truth, you know, society and culture, this crazy feedback loop in the individual. It's like, what does the individual want to express? Well, we got to learn to do that by mixing in with the world around us. And it's going to be different for different things. We're going to find out that what makes ourselves a winner and a loser might come from a dysfunction, a singular dysfunction, or an orchestration of dysfunction and functionality. So it's like to sort that out, you know, everybody's so afraid to experience, you know, we've got to do that. You know, it's such a fundamental thing. But one last thing, you know what you're going to speak about this year?
Oh yeah. We talked a little bit about it, but I'm going to talk about the 3 reasons why every man needs to train for extreme violence. and we touched on some of those, but basically the three reasons why, and within that I'm going to interweave a little bit of a philosophy, so that what this thing about training and the training method will do for you, how you can take that philosophy and apply it, and it can help you in business and life and this whole thing. But it's it's basic. It's basic in its concept, in that you need, the first thing is, I won't tell you all three, but the first thing is survival. Obviously, we all, shit can hit the fan every day, and if you don't know how to protect yourself or your family, like I said earlier, is 100% of the people who've been murdered had never been murdered before, right? So you can't use that as an excuse. It can happen. It can happen to anyone. I mean, a large portion of those people who've been murdered had never thought it would happen to them. So that's the first. But really, it's the other things, that why, as a man, do we need to do that, and what will it do for you? What are the reasons? Why do you, sitting out there, who's never been in a fight, never thought about it, why do you need to train for extreme violence? For me as a man, if you're on that path or you're a truth seeker, what are the reasons? What's that going to do for you? Because it's one thing to talk about anything, talk about your expertise, talk about fitness, but you have to decide what it is for you. You have to make that fit and go, well, how's this even me? Because that's really all that matters. What I say up here doesn't matter. What matters is if what I say can work for you in your life, and how can it work. So I'm going to really just talk about the three reasons why every man on the planet needs to train for extreme violence, and my experiences with that, how it's changed me. And then kind of a little bit of the philosophy that even if you don't do this training, it's the outlook. When you get the mentality, I mean, I think you can get the mentality through other means. My vehicle just happens to be martial arts and specific way of training. But I'm sure people could discover this through, the love of cooking, or something else. That's my vehicle. So it's the, it's the concepts behind that I'm going to kind of share. And the base level is, the very first thing is survival, because that's the first thing. Why do you eat during the day? Because if you don't, you're going to die. You have to. You got to get up. You've got to. If you can see it in all societies, when people lose their survivability, they lose everything else. Meaning, if they're worried about their survival from day to day, then everything else just goes out the window. All their culture, everything, all their it's all their the first and last thing they have to concentrate on that day is their survival, their next meal, their this, their that. So, we don't consider that, because we're in such a rich society, but ultimately we should, if you have a family or anything, you should always consider your survival. And that's the first thing, but that's the base level. That's like, why do you pick up girls? To fuck them? But what other avenues does that open up for you when you start doing that? It's like the side effect of doing that, which we talked about a lot today. And I'm going to kind of go into some stories and details about that, but kind of intermix the philosophy of why. Because truly, for me, man, it completely transformed my life, and it is my life. Like I am a martial artist. But I'm a truth seeker first, and I use martial arts to help me discover the truth. And so it's I don't think without it I would ever be thinking the way I think now. I wouldn't have the eyes, and I'm not saying I'm wise. I'm just saying I am who I am because of that. And I have discovered in my own life some pretty amazing things that all came out of the need to just fight. Save my ass from getting beat up every day. But that was just the impetus to start a whole journey of self-discovery and really truth-seeking, And everybody should be seeking the truth, but very few people do it.
Cool, man. As you can tell, it's like, I think very little did we talk about fighting in this, but we're seeing a lot with a lot of the different speakers and kind of like the upper level guys and the whole men's development movement, fitness, dating, entrepreneurship, fighting, all that sort of stuff, is everybody's saying that same thing. Everybody's found it, and made it a way of life. And it's just interesting to see your window of that today. Anyway, Fight Fast and Flee. That's where you're at.
Yeah, get on that list. I'm going to have some new things. Hopefully by the talk I will. But if you just get on the email list, then eventually I'll email everyone to some things I'm working on, which are pretty cool. And I just don't know if I'll have it by the 21 convention. So that's probably the best way. Fight Fast and Flee, or Force Dynamix with an X. And just put in your email, and then you'll be able to keep up with some of the new things. I have some products, but what I'm coming out with is a lot more. I'm much happier with that. So I'm excited.
No, cool, man. Well, we'll see you again soon. Most definitely. Cool. Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
All right, I'm going to go train.
Hey, thank you so much for watching and being a part of this movement of men, building the conversation that we're doing here to be the ideal man. If you want to take that a step further, of course, go to the21convention.com, check out our videos, man. Our YouTube page is so prolific. And of course, subscribe to all our venues of communication, whether that's iTunes or Stitcher, and of course, our massive YouTube channel. And if you want to take it a step further beyond that, don't wait any longer. Go to the 21 Convention, get your tickets, interact with the speakers. It's an entirely different experience where you get to meet, interact, pick the brains of these basic geniuses of our culture in modern times, focusing your journey to be the ideal man. Thanks for watching. Steve Mayeda signing off.